There is a building in Lower Manhattan that does not belong to the living. It stands 58 stories above the East River. Its upper floor is wrapped in black construction netting that hangs off the facade like a funeral shroud over something never quite born. On a clear morning, when the light comes off the water and turns the glass towers of the financial district into columns of fire, this one does not catch the light. It absorbs it. Dark, still, and slightly, just barely, but undeniably, wrong. The tower leans, not dramatically, but with the quiet, geometrically precise wrongness of a picture frame 1 degree off center. Just enough to make the brain whisper that something here has gone permanently, irreversibly off. That building is 161 Maiden Lane. It has been standing like this for years. No one has ever lived inside it. No one ever will. The promise began with numbers. In September 2013, Fortis Property Group paid $64 million for a sliver of Lower Manhattan, a wedge of land at the river's edge where the city's old bones meet landfill and silt. The plan was to stack 80 condominiums into the sky. Each unit a glass-wrapped vantage point, priced anywhere from $1.2 million to $18 million. The offering plan, filed with the city, projected sales of $273 million, a sum that would triple the original investment if all went as charted. The tower would climb 58 stories, stretching 670 feet above the street, its silhouette designed to stand out even in a city built for spectacle. But the arithmetic was never just about height or square footage. The equation was leverage. How much risk could be loaded into a slender column of concrete and steel? How many millions could be borrowed against the promise of future buyers? How little could be spent below ground to maximize what gleamed above? Every inch of the tower was calculated to extract value from the air, from the view, from the myth of Manhattan, as a place where stone and money always find a way to coexist. The pressure to deliver returns was relentless, and every dollar spent on unseen foundations was a dollar that would not show in the lobby or the penthouse. Before a single floor was poured, the financial logic had already begun to circle the project like a shadow, pressing for savings, demanding shortcuts, and setting the stage for the silent, irreversible mistake that would define the building's fate. Beneath the promise of glass and sky, the ground at 161 Maiden Lane tells a story that no spreadsheet can erase. The southern edge of Manhattan is not firm land, but a palimpsest of ambition, layer upon layer of colonial landfill, poured out by Dutch settlers in the 17th century, then thickened by centuries of refuse, broken masonry, and the bones of ships long vanished from the harbor. Modern geotechnical surveys peel back the surface to reveal a chaos of fill, coarse sand, brick fragments, rotting timbers, pockets of clay and silt, each settling in its own time, each resisting the weight above in its own uneven way. Historic shoreline maps show how the river once lapped far inland, before commerce and landfill redrew the city's edge. The true foundation of Lower Manhattan is not stone but memory and debris. Yet below that unstable quilt, far deeper than any casual glance would guess, lies the Manhattan schist, a band of ancient metamorphic rock, iron-hard and unyielding, formed some 400 million years ago. In this part of the financial district, the schist sits roughly 150 feet below grade, a depth confirmed by both city bore logs and the 2002 foundation guidelines for waterfront towers. Every skyscraper that stands the test of time in this district owes its life to piles or caissons driven down to this bedrock. The engineering consensus is clear: for buildings over 150 feet tall, only bedrock will do. Anything less is a wager against time, gravity, and the slow, relentless settling of landfill. At 161 Maiden Lane, the immutable limit was not money, but geology. The ground itself imposed its own terms, indifferent to investment models or marketing gloss. The city's most enduring towers are not just feats of architecture, they are acts of submission to the realities beneath them. In Lower Manhattan, bedrock is not a detail. It is the only promise that endures. The choice was made behind closed doors, in the language of memos and margin notes. Fortis's geotechnical consultant presented a report nearly 100 pages thick, spelling out the risks in black and white. The standard prescription for a tower of this height was as old as the skyline itself. Drive steel piles down through the landfill, past the silt and broken brick, until they bit into the Manhattan schist, 150 feet below the surface. But another option glimmered on the balance sheet: jet grout soil improvement, a method that replaces the chaos of fill with columns of high-pressure cement, could be installed to a depth of just 55 feet. The savings: $6 million, a mere 2% of the budget, but enough to catch the eye of a developer board hunting for margins. The consultant's warning was clear. Jet grout might work in uniform sand, but here, in a patchwork of centuries-old debris, it could lead to differential settlement. The ground would not yield evenly. The tower's weight would find the weak spots, and the structure above would begin to move in ways no rendering could predict. Yet the allure of immediate savings, money that could be spent on marble, on glass, on the visible, proved stronger than the counsel of caution. The alternatives memo, signed and filed, reduced the foundation from an anchor to a wager. Approval came swiftly. The board authorized the jet grout plan, locking in the shortcut as policy. Columns of cement slurry, each one a compromise, replaced what should have been steel and stone. The decision was not a miscalculation in the field, not a botched pour or a lazy day's work. It was a deliberate, calculated gamble, an attempt to buy a future at a discount from the past. The ground, indifferent to spreadsheets and signatures, waited. The first irreversible act had been committed. The rest would follow in silence, measured in inches and years. April 2018 delivered the first hard numbers. RC Structures, the concrete subcontractor, submitted a sealed report to the Developers Council. The tower, not yet topped out, was already drifting. 4 tilt meters were anchored to the basement slab, and 2 laser leveling stations were fixed to the rising superstructure. These instruments did not speculate or accuse. They measured. The data showed a northward displacement of just over 3 inches at the roofline, with a 2-inch drift between the 11th and 21st floors. The lean was not a rumor or a contractor's complaint. It was a fact, stamped and filed, its chain of custody logged in the court's own docket. Thornton Tomasetti's senior principal, Elizabeth Malch, would later certify in a sworn affidavit that the lean had reached 4 inches before the building's full dead load was even applied. The predicted settlement values, she wrote, had already been exceeded. There was no immediate threat to public safety, but the warning was unambiguous. The tower was moving, and the movement was neither random nor self-correcting. These numbers, 3 inches then 4, were not abstractions. They meant that the structure above was no longer in quiet dialogue with gravity, but in open argument. The differential drift recorded by the instruments was the architectural equivalent of a fever, a symptom that could not be wished away, a sign that the body was rejecting its own foundation. In the sterile language of engineering logs, the building's fate was being written inch by inch as a record of settlement that no amount of marble or glass could conceal. The tower's lean did not remain a hidden defect, buried in engineering logs or whispered among consultants. It became visible in concrete and glass, a geometry so wrong it could be felt in the bones. As the structure rose, the construction crew was forced to improvise, pouring floor slabs deliberately out of level, each new layer an attempt to counteract the growing tilt below. The result was a vertical curvature that bent the building's spine, a slow arc that would soon earn it the nickname banana-shaped in a New York courtroom. The misalignment was not theoretical. It was measured in inches, then in feet, and finally in the failure of systems meant to make the tower habitable. By the time the facade reached the 21st floor, the curtain wall frame was 2 inches out of line with the 11th, making it impossible to install the glass panels as designed. Elevator shafts, meant to run true from lobby to penthouse, could not be plumbed. The vertical core itself had drifted off-center, and attempts to compensate only deepened the building's permanent deformity. The tuned mass dampers, 4 immense tanks designed to steady the tower against the wind, were never installed. Without them, every gust would set the upper floors swaying, amplifying the sense that the building was not just unfinished, but unmoored. Construction diaries record the mounting frustration on site, measurements that would not hold, tolerances that vanished, a project veering into the realm of the absurd. What began as a cost-saving maneuver had become an architectural spectacle, one whose flaws were now written across its face for the entire city to see. Paper towers topple as surely as concrete ones. By 2019, the unfinished skeleton at 161 Maiden Lane was no longer just a failed promise to buyers, but a legal battlefield, its future mortgaged to a labyrinth of lawsuits and frozen accounts. Pizzarati, the general contractor, sued Fortis in New York State Supreme Court, alleging that the Jet Grout Foundation, chosen to save $6 million, had doomed the project to instability. The developer countered, blaming the contractor's pores, each side hurling expert affidavits and technical exhibits like artillery across the docket. In a hearing, Pizzarati's attorney gave the building its lasting epitaph. "Your Honor, it's shaped like a banana right now." Bank Leumi, exposed for $120 million in loans, filed for foreclosure as the project defaulted. The court appointed a receiver, but no one could move forward. Remediation, according to a January 2023 engineering memo, would demand $106 million. Deep piles, structural releveling, tuned mass dampers, pushing total exposure to the edge of $356 million. 71 condo buyers canceled their contracts, flooding the court with demands for refunds. Subcontractors filed liens. The docket swelled to over 1,400 documents, a paper barricade that choked off every path to rescue or demolition. There is no fix that pencils out. The lawsuits lock the money, and the lack of money locks the lawsuits. The building stands untouched, a monument to the impasse. In this deadlock, time itself is a creditor, and gravity waits, patient and unpaid. No amount of capital or ambition can out-argue the earth. A $6 million shortcut left a monument to hubris, its banana-shaped silhouette a silent indictment. In Manhattan, geology is the only judge that never accepts settlement. The ground always casts the final vote, and it never forgets.